In this episode of the Texas Private School Podcast, the Parish dynasty survives another week. All Saints empties the clip on Fort Worth Christian. The Fort Bend Christian miracle run continues. Legacy blows the doors off of Antonian, and the Eagle Party continues for Second Baptist. All this and more in the round two review of the Texas Private School Podcast. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Texas Private School Podcast, a very special playoff review edition, recapping the quarterfinal round of TAPS action. As always, I am one third or one half of your hosting crew in this scenario. I'm Wes Tolleson, joining you from Dallas, Texas. Walker Lott calls in from south of here in College Station, Texas. Our other third, Ryan Schroeder, who normally calls in from up north. I don't
What's
know. I
he?
can't think
Yeah,
of an
what's he
excuse
up
to
to
say.
this week?
This week, I think that he posted a clip that he shouldn't have to Oklahoma City Thunder basketball, and they beat him
Mm,
with crowbars until he was unconscious. So hoping for a speedy recovery for Ryan Schroeder. Depends on, I guess, how large the crowbars were. But
true.
that being said, Walker, a fantastic week in Texas private school football. I personally got to see one of the all-time games that I've covered since we started this. How were the games that you covered, and any opening thoughts on round two action?
Yeah, no, one of them was a really good game, came down to the wire, and then another one was a complete blowout from the beginning of the game. So what a parallel in high school football as it is always. But yeah, very good week, a couple of really good games, a couple blowouts, but overall, pretty solid week.
Definitely so. Yeah, it was a fun time to be in the space. At least the games, all of our games of the week, for the most part, except for All Saints and Legacy were decently close. Especially the ones I was at, and then Second Baptist, Brownsville St. Joseph's was at least for a half, and then Second Baptist pulled away. But we are going to review those in more depth here shortly. First, we have some news for the first time in a while. So for the past couple of weeks, we had been questioning what was going on in terms of neutral site playoff games versus home. The way that I've always been familiar with it is the first round is always played at the home stadium of the higher seeded team, and then after that, it's neutral site. Point blank period. That's always what I've witnessed in Texas private school ball. We had a correction in our comment section. It appears this is true for at least one of the divisions. I will read, quote, regarding football playoff sites, TAPS decreed last year, 2023, that all football playoff games before the state championships will be played at the home field of the higher seed. Only equally seeded teams will play at neutral sites in the first three rounds. TAPS did this as a cost-cutting move to stop losing money renting neutral site stadiums. However, this edict may change for this year's state semifinals. Feel free to contact the TAPS office in Fort Worth for confirmation. So that's the information that we have. I don't know I don't know if this guy meant across all divisions or only Division One. We have confirmed this is only in Division One.
So,
So thank you, B Shackle 446 via our YouTube comments. We actually do read the YouTube comments if that's proof. But Walker,
yeah.
just said a lot of words. This clears some stuff up. Anything further that you want to comment on regarding this?
No, yeah, we know 100% that this is how it is for TAPS Division One. It's kind of a decree that they made within each other to like make this happen. And of course, we love TAPS, but TAPS did not promote this agenda. It didn't change the brackets for TAPS D1. So that's why we were kind of confused. But yeah, every higher seed gets the home game, like you see this week. Liberty Christian gets the home game against St. Thomas, and Parish gets the home game against Frisco Legacy. So this is how it is. This is how it is in Division One. And as you see in the other divisions, every other game is a neutral site in the semifinals, and at least majority of them in the quarterfinals. So that's basically solidified for TAPS D1.
So here's my question. If this was actually, and remember, none of this is necessarily like the point that the Division One teams are playing at the higher seed, it's home, is true. The whole cost cutting stuff, like that's not verified. This is just somebody in our YouTube comments saying that. Like we don't know that for
I
sure.
mean, it makes sense. It's not losing money, so it kind of
But
does make sense.
what I was going to say is, if this is a cost cutting move, why are we confining it to Division One? Why isn't this D1 through D4?
I think there's less teams in D1, and D2 is a little bit more spread out, and to the point where I mean, I, D1
But
makes
even
more
like even in
D1.
D1, you made an El Paso team drive to Preston. Nothing about that game made sense. But
Right. But I guess my point's kind of invalid because if you're talking about neutral sites, playing the neutral sites in D1 would make more sense because there's a lot of cross Texas travel in Division 1. In
right,
D2 and D3, you're playing pretty much the teams in your city at least for the first two rounds. So you would do the neutral sites in D1 instead of D2. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. D1
I don't
smart,
know.
I guess. I don't know.
Like a lot of things, the more I try and make it make sense, the less sense it makes. So I'm going to do my brain a favor and just say that's what we know.
Yeah,
Yell at Taps if you don't like it. We are just the messengers reporting on what we know. So
so true.
that is all regarding that. The second bit of news is, I guess, our first bit of controversy in the last year was we put out a scoreboard on Saturday night. Ryan Schroeder did from
Mm.
the Raising Cane's parking lot in Oklahoma City. And then apparently, I don't even remember what the score said. Actually, I can scroll down here
Well,
and
it
see
what
it.
it
It had,
was, it was a copied and pasted from, and I'll take also blame for this. That I was in a Raising Cane's parking lot in Austin, and I was given these so we can have them for the space, and I forgot to copy and paste the Liberty Christian Lynch score to St. Thomas St. Michael's, and so
oh,
I copied and pasted it for the graphic, but I forgot to change the St. Thomas St. Mike's graphic. So Ryan Schroeder, after finishing up his whole night, tired as heck, he didn't think about checking every score and he just saw that and put it on the graphic. That's why. And then when I told him it's the opposite way, he just flipped the score and didn't flip the actual to the actual score. And so it was changed twice and it was both wrong the same time. So it's on me. I apologize to St. Mike's. But it was a simple mishap and it happens. And we got one out of what, 20 scores, right? But
not just one out of 20.
wrong.
It's the only
Sorry.
time this season that we've messed up. So it's like been one out of like 500. But
So but
so that explains it actually. I didn't know
yeah,
that.
I get it because in a game that was, and we'll talk about it in a second, a game that was pretty much down to the wire, you don't want to see you get blown out
64 to
60.
19. Yeah.
Right, I get that. Um, but yeah, it's hard to tell Ryan Schroeder coming off a whole entire day of working for the Oklahoma City Thunder be like, hey, can you change this one small thing at 2 in the
Yeah,
morning?
like
So
it's because on so my perspective of it was I after I got off the space, I had to go do some stuff, and like I didn't see like any of the text. I didn't read any of the text messages until the next morning. I didn't even read anything I was sent after I got off, so I didn't know there were like two or three switches. Like I wake up and like I've got like 45 like St. Michael's people in our DMs like that's a huge difference. What are you doing? And I'm like, what is going on? I'm looking at it. I'm like, yeah, I don't think it was 64 to 19. And I was like, after the first like two or three, I was like, I'm gonna leave the scoreboard up, man. Like I don't know why Ryan Walker like left it up, but I don't care. And finally, like seven or eight like roll in. I was like, I'm gonna archive it, and we're just gonna just pretend this didn't happen. But for any St. Michael, the St. Michael's fans aren't watching anymore because they're on the couch. But if you are, we are sorry. It wasn't intentional. It was a copy paste move. We are now instead of 100% on the scoreboard this season, we are 99.996. So many apologies. That being said, let us actually get into the TXPS Media Football scoreboard. As always, the top five games in the left-hand column, we are going to actually no, some of these are spread out a little bit, but
yeah, that's Ryan Schroeder
first,
being
there are
tired.
five games in random places on the scoreboard that we're going to save for further analysis. I will see if I can avoid those landmines as we get to them. The first game, Bishop Lynch versus Argyle Liberty. Liberty surprises nobody and beats Lynch 64 to 19. Expected, I said on the previous episode that maybe don't be surprised if Lynch maybe has us a game at some point. They never did. Liberty is Liberty, business as usual.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about this one. Houston St. Thomas wins 21-7 over St. Mike's. It was literally 7-0 for 4 quarters, where St. Mike's' first drive of the game they scored, and then it was 0-0 for two straight quarters until the fourth, where it finally opened up a little bit more. It was a rushing touchdown, I believe, to Miles Stewart to make it 14-0. A kind of a what is it, like a Tim Tebow fake sneak pass over the middle. Uh,
Ah,
Play by Nico Anderson makes it 14-7. They needed to have one stop. St. Mike's needed to have one stop, and they just couldn't do it. St. Thomas goes down and scores with a Javon Waldron 40-yard touchdown to ice the game 21-7. And that was basically ball game. Overall, my small thoughts, because this wasn't a game in a week, but I was out there because I thought this was going to be a good one, and it absolutely was on St. Thomas's side. They St. Mike's couldn't stop the run, man. It was really good for them. Javon Waldron went 6 carries for 52 yards. Miles Stewart went 10 for 48. Both had touchdowns. And receiving, they finally have went with Pierce Jacobson, the sophomore quarterback,
hmm.
instead of Roy Thomas Jenkins, which is interesting to see. He started last game. He starts again this one. And he, like I said a couple weeks ago, they love him around there. And you can kind of see why. He's just a gamer, man. He knows what he needs to do. His IQ's off the charts, and he makes the right throws and makes the right reads where he needs to go. He went 15 of 21 for 160 and a touchdown. The touchdown was to Javon Waldron, so I guess it was a screen. Um, yeah, and then no. That was the first touchdown of the game. I apologize. But other big plays, Nate Tidwell had 8 for 80. Logan Brenton went 2 for 52. Derek Stevenson made a big play also here and there. Just you could tell why he can be a true D1 guy with the speed and the athleticism that he has. Um, Defensively, Liam McCarthy, the junior, the linebacker, is really good. Jack Reed made a big time plays throughout the games. Overall, really good day for those guys. Obina Ume, one of the best defensive linemen in TXPS, made Nico Anderson run a lot in that one. So that's what you want to see. Overall, good win for St. Thomas. They have the luck and fortune to play Liberty Christian next round, so congrats to them. But on the other side, you see St. Mike's and the hype that was around this team. You see why I came away really impressed with Nico Anderson. He was more poised and confident in how he was. He went 22 of 35 for 191. He looked really good. Guys like Andres Patino, Angel Cordova, uh, Utah Anderson made a couple plays. Defensively, I was really impressed with like Will Garcia, the senior, Utah Anderson again, Pierce Kovacs, uh, Ben Brophy made a couple big plays. There were dudes, Miller Bonsack. There's a reason I think this team is really impressive. And there was a reason they were number two in their division in their district, but um, I just don't think I think the defensive masterclass by Coach Davis and company at St. Thomas was just very impressive. They didn't really make mistakes, and they were played sound quality defense, and you saw how they just couldn't get anything really going. For St. Mike's couldn't get anything going. They got stopped in the red zone a couple times. It just you got to give credit to Coach Davis and that whole defense. They played their tails off. St. Mike's looking forward. You have Nico Anderson, you have Patino, you have Pierce Kovacs. You have pieces. It's going to be interesting to see this team without a Utah Anderson, a Miller Bonsack, a Will Garcia. It's going to be interesting to see how good they can be next year. I definitely think they're going to have to bring in a couple pieces just to compete at this level again. But there's supposedly some younger guys that could step up and show out. So also shout out to our intern Jacob Garcia. They're playing for St. Migos. But overall, good game, good times. Let's move on.
Austin Regents beats Midland Christian 46-23. My on record prediction was a 42-7 victory for Regents. Not quite that, still a wide margin of victory. Midland Christian still one of the middle tier teams in D2, while Regents is still in that upper echelon. Good win for Jack Devine and company.
Absolutely. Um, I'm having to scour through as well.
Lubbock
Um,
Christian and All
yeah,
Saints.
Lubbock Christian All Saints, 56 nothing. Not much to say there. Uh,
Where's the All Saints kid that was chirping me last week when I picked against y'all? Where are you now? What's your all-time record against Grace?
goodness. Oh wow, you took it there. Yeah, I mean, good win for Lubbock Christian. Move on, you know. And
Speaking of good wins over inferior opponents, Dallas Christian beats Pantego Christian 55 to nothing to set up a semifinal matchup with Lubbock Christian. I don't care about DC beating Pantego 55 to nothing. I care about DC and Lubbock Christian playing this Friday in don't say the name. We just talked about it, Walker. Let me think about it. It's outside of Abilene. It's like a four. What's the name of the town?
Clyde.
Clyde. I was not going to say Clyde. Lubbock Christian, Dallas Christian, Clyde, Friday evening. Tune in, find a live stream link.
We didn't do Christian. We didn't do this game, right? The next
Nope.
one. Okay. Covenant Christian beats Dallas Covenant 28-9 to extend their lead over Dallas Covenant this year. Remember, this game was a 13-7 win last time. They decided to play a little bit better in this one. Covenant wins 28-9, big win for them to now play Holy Cross. We'll talk about in a second in the semi-final round.
Absolutely. San Antonio Holy Cross beats Lake Country Christian out of Fort Worth 56 to 14 after I think Walker Lott said this would be a two-score game. Is that the pick on record?
I think it's a 2-3, and
It's a little more than
I
three.
you know what? I'm gonna rephrase history, and I said 2-3 scores for Lake Country. That's what I
Ah, yeah, okay. Yeah, so after I was screaming pull the tape for misinformation last episode, I'm going to do that again because apparently you were just
meant.
the minister of misinformation on this podcast.
It is what it is. Shout out to Holy Cross though. Next round. Moving on. Speaking of moving on, First Baptist plays beats Mercy Culture 58-14. Um, Not the greatest showing for Mercy Culture, but this is kind of what you expected from First Baptist. Big win. First half. I think they scored like 45 or something along those lines in the first half. Kind of what you expected from First Baptist, but a big win where they now move on to play Central Texas Christian in the semifinals.
Yeah, definitely so. And that to be said, after an abysmal start to the season for Mercy Culture, they probably won like I think four straight to end the season. I mean, yet again, a good way to finish for a team that's still in its infancy. Every team in the division is going to get beat like that to First Baptist. So it is what it is. Moving on, Central Texas Christian destroys Hallettsville Sacred Heart 52 to 6. Again, Central Texas Christian has incredibly quietly gone 10-1 this season. However, their one loss was to Brazos Christian. It wasn't particularly close, 29 to 12. Even with this 10-1 season, I don't think Central Texas are contenders in the division. I think they're good. I just don't think they're going to be the team that's going to knock off a Brazos or a First Baptist. And remind me, Walker, what side of the bracket are they on? Who are they playing?
Who? Central Texas?
Yes.
First Baptist next
Okay,
round.
well, congratulations to Central Texas. You've had a fantastic season. Try and keep this game within 35.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought about that game is this is a test to see how competitive first Brazos Christian will be in the next round. If Central Texas somehow in some way keeps it close, we might have a competitive semifinal game or championship game. If it is kind of what we expect, it's going to be a good ride and a pretty fun ride to the title for First Baptist. But
I will give my prediction on record, and Coach Lavorne, don't let any of your players listen to this because it's rat poison. However, I don't think there's any way any of these games are even remotely competitive. First Baptist is just way too good.
yeah, I kind of going to tend to agree with you on that. Um, Looking into the next game, Waco Live Oak beats Sacred Heart 30-18. The D4 newcomer is just dominating and makes it all the way to the semifinals in their first time in 11-man football. A team that is usually always really good in 6-man lives up to their hype in playoffs and is now in the semifinals where they play Brazos Christian this upcoming week in Rysel, Texas. Big win for them. Congratulations on making the semifinals in the first year of 11-man football.
Absolutely. Speaking of Brazos Christian, they best Shiner St. Paul, the old guard of Division 4, 52 to 8 in a quarterfinal matchup. That's a pretty crazy score in a quarterfinal game. Brazos Christian advances their undefeated season, going 11-0 up to this point. They will meet, as you mentioned, Waco Live Oak in Riesel this coming Saturday. Yeah, this Saturday. That'll be a fun game. As you mentioned, Live Oak are kind of the darlings of Division 4, moving up from 6-man, doing very well up to this point. it'll be fun. It might be a game that we have to preview, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
maybe.
so that concludes the TXPS Media Scoreboard powered by Ryan Schroeder and Walker Lott. This is the one week that maybe I'm a little happy I don't have my name attached to it for the sake of the St. Mike's horde that come at us. We apologize for that once again. That being said, we mentioned that we would save 5 games for further analysis. Well, we have arrived at that doorstep. We will start with the marquee matchup in Division One, Prestonwood versus Parish. As the dynasty lay flatlining, doctors Anderson and Darby threw the AEDs on it and kept it alive for another week. The Panthers win this one 61-55 in an all-time TXPS shootout. Sawyer Anderson put together maybe the greatest individual performance I've seen live. Almost 600 yards of individual offense, 443 passing yards, 146 rushing yards in
Whew.
an elimination game, nonetheless. And I'll say this now. Sawyer Anderson is a Power 4 football commit, a 3-time state champion playing through an injury. Not a single person would fault him for saying, I'm going to protect myself here in favor for a long and prosperous collegiate career. Instead, he puts his body on the line to a degree which I haven't seen in 4 years, running through people, running around people, seeking out contact, and basically saying, if we lose, it will not be because I didn't give every ounce of gas I have left in the tank. To any younger players watching, that is what separates the good from the great in this sport. It was fantastic to watch. It really, really tells you what kind of athlete and person Sawyer Anderson is. However, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the guy that got almost 300 of those receiving yards and 2 touchdowns, Carson Darby. Darby's a top 3 receiver in TXPS, and anyone telling you otherwise is a liar. How do you average almost 30 yards a catch on 10 receptions? I really do think he might be my favorite receiver in TXPS. He is the definition of electric. Senior athlete Nick Wheeler also contributed with 3 touchdowns of his own on the ground, but this was not without an elite effort by the opposing team. Luke Glass had 404 yards of his own, with Matthew McLean going for 200 and Jonathan Frenchlove for 144 yards. Both of those receivers had 2 touchdowns on the night. And the craziest thing is both of those guys are juniors. They will be back next year with what could possibly be the best offense in the state. You know, after Parish rushed out to a 21-0 lead, Prestonwood clawed back, and this went back and forth over the next 36 minutes. After scoring late to close the gap to 6, Vandy commit Justin Dewars placed a perfect onside kick that gave the Lions the ball with a chance to win this one. But junior defensive back Trip Brown goes up on 4th down and forces a pass breakup on McLean to seal a semifinal appearance for Parish. And now the Panthers will advance to their 7th straight semifinal appearance. That number in itself is insane. We obviously know the 5-time defending state champions, 7-time repeating semifinal appearances. Walker, we wrote the dynasty off. The dynasty didn't write back, it appears. Your thoughts on Parish beating at least the second or third best team in D1 to move on?
It's just unbelievable. And during the season, we kind of talked about it, right, Wes? Like we don't want to doubt Daniel Novikov. We don't want to doubt this offense. We don't want to doubt them being in the big time moments, making the big time plays. And then they didn't come out with the victories in the regular season. And so we kind of did write them off. We were like, you know what? They just don't have it this year. But we kind of had to stay true to truly what we thought about in the first place is you cannot doubt these guys. The dynasty is not going to be over until it's over. And they are going to play at least one more week. It is just unbelievable what they did. And I saw somewhere, and I think, Mike Leslie from WFAA posted like he reached 14,000 career passing yards this past week. Unbelievable. Which is a testament in itself. And I was looking at it, and I was looking at the comments just caught my eye. And one guy says, well, that's what happens when all you do is pass the ball. And I heard that, and I was like, wrong. Like, that's just not true. And I
No.
went back and looked at the stats, and I was like, okay, these teams are great, but like, how crazy were his stats these past couple years, right? So as a freshman, he went for around 3,000 yards, while also Andrew Paul rushing for 2,600 yards. Think about that. A 26-yard rusher, and you think about it. You're number 3 in all-time passing yards in the state of Texas, or four, number 3 or 4, whatever the stat is. Your freshman year, when you passed for 3K, you also had a rusher rush for 2,600 yards. That season, not one guy went over 1,000 yards receiving. Let's go to the sophomore year, okay? He passed for 3,000 yards. That is the first year of Maddox Reed running for 1,000 yards that year. Again, not one receiver has over 1,000 yards. The highest was Derek Usbia with 750-ish. Okay. So another great year. So you're at around 6,000 now. Okay. His junior year, he goes for around 3,500 passing yards. While also Maddox Reed, his senior year, rushing for around 2,000 yards again. Okay. And then that year again, you don't have one receiver over 1,000 yards receiving. Okay. Carson Darby as a junior was the highest with 937. Okay. By the way, the jump that Jalen Pyle makes from his sophomore to junior year is crazy. Pyle as a sophomore only had 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. Anyways, not the point, but crazy. And then finally, his senior year. This is finally the year that you could say, you know what? They don't have a Maddox Reed. They don't have an Andrew Paul. Let's just throw the mess out of the ball. And that is exactly what he's doing. He has 4,000 yards this year, 43 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. The highest rusher is Marcus Hanish with only 600, and they has almost 3 1,000-yard receivers tonight. This is the first year that you can say, oh, all they do is pass the ball. And now I just refreshed from like 2 nights ago. He's now up to 4,500 passing yards, 45 touchdowns. The highest rusher, 600 yards. And now, yeah, Carson Darby's at 1,400 receiving yards. Jalen Powell's at almost 1,300, and Bryson Fields at 963. He's having an unbelievable year. And so we've always talked about in the years past about how this offense really relies on the run game more than the pass game because they've always had the back to like let Sawyer open it up, everything, right? This is kind of the first year that they've had to struggle in the run game. And Sawyer Anderson's like, I'm that guy. I'm a guy who's going to be on the Mount Rushmore of private school athletes to ever play the game. And you see what he's doing week in and week out, and he's just dominating. And it's what you expect from him. What Seven does, we kind of forget because he's done it for so long. It's remarkable. You know, we always say, oh, this is just kind of what Seven does. He has one of the best arms we've ever seen. How it gets it off his hand is just beautiful. But we forget that like that actually results in wins, championships, and just the grit to find ways to win. And it's just awesome to see. So I wanted to counteract that point of like, oh, well, all they do is pass the ball. No, like they've had in 4 years of Sawyer Anderson, 2 of the years they had 2,000-yard backs and a 1,000-yard back on the third year. You can't say that. You have to say this offense is one of the best we've ever seen. Daniel Novikov knows how to scheme, and he puts Sawyer Anderson in the best play possible. It's just unbelievable. I think he can even get the 2. I think I'll have to look at it right now.
How far is he from 1? Is that in reach in the next 2 games, or is it probably sticking at 2?
Do you remember who is number 1?
It's not. I mean, it's definitely not Kyler Murray.
No, it is. It's a private school kid.
Oh my God, it's St. Pius, Greg
Yep.
Gunnell.
Greg Gunnell has 16,000. Shout out to Greg Gunnell for that record since we are a TXPS podcast.
Yeah,
That's unbelievable. The 4-year starter, unbelievable time at St. Pius. But
absolutely. No,
getting number 2 and like getting to a number that is insane to number 2, it's impressive.
very much so. But yeah, the dynasty survives. They will meet Legacy Christian Academy in the state semifinals this week, and we'd be looking forward to how that turns out. The next game to recap: All Saints versus Fort Worth Christian. All Saints scores 42 points in the first quarter and empties the clip on Fort Worth Christian, winning this one 49-20. In terms of passing, Gavin Parkhurst had 7 touchdowns, all of which except one were in the first quarter. The last one was like halfway through the second. Like I don't know, like what this first quarter like held to All Saints. I think we'll get into more of the reasons later, but it's a it's a single quarter performance that I've never seen covering the sport in terms of receiving, because all these touchdowns were passing touchdowns. Kamate William caught 4 in the first quarter. Peter Heron caught 1. Bryce Anderson caught 1, and Don Taylor caught 1. So that was the game. The first quarter was the game. If you showed up after the first 12 minutes of the game, even if you showed up after the first 2 minutes of the game, you might as well have just gone home. But regarding this game, so I think we can say now that we heard a lot of rumblings there was going to be some sort of punishment handed down to Fort Worth Christian about a week ago because issues we won't get into here. We had thought they could be forced to forfeit the Hyde Park win, but instead they self-imposed a suspension of several key players for the first half of this game. Clearly, All Saints took advantage of that very quickly. Regardless of suspension, I would have taken All Saints by a lot of points here, and they took care of business, and they will advance to play Regents in the semis. Uh, Walker, do you think the suspended players? I'm not going to say have any impact on the game because clearly it did, but it doesn't change the outcome.
It would have not changed the outcome, but it would have changed the score. That's how I would have
Yeah.
said it. That yes, 42 in the first quarter is insane, and that is when majority of their players had to, not majority, but like the players that were impactful had to be taken out. Think about it, like one of their players that was suspended was Landon Gigliotta. Your star quarterback is gone. That's a recipe for disaster on offense, especially with no Kate Cropholler. You know what I mean? So when that happens, it leads to bad things, and no one in the state of Texas can come back from 42 whatever in the first quarter. So, impressed that if I'm right, they didn't score. All Saints didn't score in the second half. All the points for Fort Worth Christian were in the second half, and they scored
Hmm.
20. Just think about that, right? Like 42 total for All Saints. If you score another 20 in the first half for Fort Worth Christian, it could be a close game. But I think that's a kind of a lesson learned, right? For teams out there, like you do dumb games, you win dumb prizes. You know what I mean? I think that's how the thing is. But like you gotta be smart. And when punishments come, it doesn't just affect you; it affects your team, and things like this happens. So I hope everyone around TXBS takes this as a lesson and be like, hey, let's not do that. You know what I mean? So, but big win for All Saints. It truly would. I don't think would have changed anything. Like we said, Wes, last episode, we predicted All Saints by 3 scores, and that's kind of what happened. So, big win for them, and they move on to play regions.
Definitely so. Yeah, it can be summed up with play stupid games, win stupid prizes. But that will conclude the analysis there. We will stay in Division Two and move down south to Brownsville St. Joseph's versus Second Baptist. An equal party it was as Second Baptist holds the high flying Bloodhound offense to 10 points. I don't think I can say high flying Bloodhounds because, as far as I know, dogs don't fly. So that was a snafu in the script for me, but we're going to just roll right through it. Second Baptist won 29 to 10. However, this was only a 10 to 9 game at the half. Bryce Butler had 3 rushing touchdowns. Cannon Toot had 1 rushing, and then Adam Vessel had an interception, and Ethan Dishman also had an interception. Very nice to see Bryce Butler, who is their best defensive player, also become their best offensive player in this game. That dude's a Division One prospect. He is a
Yep.
monster and should be recognized further for his action. But that being said, I think I said on the episode 300 yards from Claudio Torres, and a win. Didn't happen.
No.
It appears it didn't happen.
Yeah.
I didn't get the final stats from St. Joseph's, and I quite frankly don't want to because I don't think you can get 300 yards with 10 points. Hang on, I realized I probably just messed something up. If Second Baptist won 29 to 10, and I said the game was only 10 to 9 at the half, you can't only score a single point. So either I read the Second Baptist Twitter wrong or the Second Baptist Twitter did something wrong. Anyways, 29-10, don't care. Walker Lott, Second Baptist will advance to rematch Fort Bend Christian in the semifinals either this Friday or Saturday. I haven't checked. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Brownsville had a great year. Claudio Torres, I think, will still be in the MVP conversation for how good he has done this year. But I think we got too much into the hype, West, of like the
Yeah.
team wins the first game and they have a lot of hype going into this week. And we forget that, like, and Ryan said it really well last week of like, there's a reason Second Baptist was kind of our favorites get to the title game this year because of the
Yeah.
talent they have, the coaching, the players. When you have Bryce Butler, who's not even their main back, be like, "Hey, I'm a pretty good player. Let me run the rock a little bit." That's it's hard to beat. You know what I mean? Where he's a superstar athlete, one of the best in TXBS, and he can do it both sides of the ball. And then you have Langston Davis right behind him. Like it's just disgusting. And it's going to be interesting to see this next round. The rivalry's back, and it's going to be fun to watch. But big win for Second Baptist kind of proves to us, hey, like we are proves our thoughts about earlier in the year. Like, hey, there's a reason y'all were calling us the favorites in the South, and they proved it again this week. Good win for them.
Definitely so. I'll stand to my point that said, I said on the episode that I could live with being wrong in this game and Second Baptist winning. I couldn't live with being wrong and St. Joseph's winning. And I wanted to push all of my chips to the middle of the table. If I was given this opportunity again, I would do the exact same thing. Salute Claudio Torres for an incredible career. Salute St. Joseph's for an incredible season. You have to recognize greatness when it comes across. We will move on. Stay in Division Two. In the South, the Woodlands Christian Academy versus Fort Bend Christian. Fort Bend sweeps the Woodlands Christian Academy 5-38 to advance to the state semifinals. Shout out to Bradley Hanna, intern number one, for the live coverage where I pulled the stats from. This was a very dominant ground attack for the Eagles of Fort Bend Christian. Cole Whidden, quarterback, had three. Darnell Smith had two. Whidden also had a passing touchdown. Two, guess who? Blake Hamilton to wrap up the scoring on the Eagle side in this one. But obviously, you know who's going to get their own. That is Santiago Fernandez, Bo Ellis, and the rest of that TWCA team. And, they put up 38 points. The only problem is they didn't put up 46, and they let Fort Bend score 45. Walker, two great offenses. We knew this would be close, and it came down to the wire. It was tied late into the fourth quarter. I think about 2.5 minutes left. We expected this. I don't know what the takeaways are here. I think both these teams are good. Well, I don't know. Almost gonna say I don't know if they're Second Baptist, Regents good. But they are because Fort Bend Christian beat Second Baptist. I don't know if they're All Saints good, is what I'll say. Your thoughts?
I agree with you there. I don't think any team right now is all Saints good, but I definitely do think Fort Bend is on the level of Second Baptist. I think that next week's
Yes.
game is going to be a lot of fun. And back to this one, like what a game. Like back and forth the entire time. One team scores, the next team scores, and back to forth, back and forth. Bo Ellis had like a 99-yard punt or kick return, something like that. Like the best players on the field came out and play. And I love the TWCA guys. I want to shout them out a little bit. Like the fight from the last game where they couldn't really do anything on offense that flipped the script to get everything like going on offense this time is impressive, and I think it's a bright future ahead for this TWCA team. And the seniors played hard, man. Like, did you see that Grayson Boker touchdown to make it
Oh my
38-38? That stiff arm or the hit by Boker, most players, want to run past him. He says, no, I'm gonna lay the shoulder. Like, which when you're 6'3" and that built, like you can do that easily, and that's what you should do in big run. And that's what you want for your big time players, making big time plays, and that's what they
Yeah,
did.
I know because that's what I used to do when I got the ball. I looked to,
Right,
all
because
150 pounds of me back
right.
in senior year.
Absolutely. And so that's what you want in your guys. And they made plays. And I think they're going to be right back here next year. What Kobe Hole and that team is doing this year has been awesome. I love the program and the direction they're heading. It's just they couldn't get over it. They tied the game up with 2 minutes left or something along those lines. They just left too much time on the clock for Colbert and the company. And I don't know how the matchups and quarterback, was doing this offseason, but they finally found the guy in Cole Whidden, man. And what he did in that last play with that 30-yard touchdown run, it's just impressive, man. It's really good. really impactful, and it's just what Cole Brennan has is just very impressive. And so they have at least a guy there for the next 2 years. He can get the job done, and it's awesome to see. So going to the next week, it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting to see how does Second Baptist respond, because TWCA had to play them, basically back-to-back weeks. Second
Yep.
Baptist has a couple weeks now to prepare and think through their mistakes and um, the self damages they did last time and see if they can fix those mistakes and not do them again. So we'll see if Second Baptist can respond well in this next game.
We will see. Obviously, it'll be a game of the week. If you're asking me, I've got to write the script late tonight, between late tonight and tomorrow. And if you're asking me who I'm going to pick, I tell you I have no idea. It's once we get to this point in the season, we're going to see a lot of coin flips. That will be another one. But Walker Lott, you were at two contests this weekend. You've talked about the first at the top. We will close with the second.
Yep.
Frisco Legacy versus Antonian Preparatory. How did this one go?
Yeah, so after I did the St. Thomas game, the St. Thomas St. Migos game, I decided to drive down to San Antonio, stay the night at a hotel, and wake up and watch a predicted pretty great matchup between Antonian and the Legacy Christian that we predicted to be a close game. And that was not the case at all, as Legacy goes down to San Antonio back-to-back weeks and dominates from the start in a 62-27 win over the Apaches. From the jump, it was all Eagles, as this offense scored on the first or second play on their first 4 drives. Unbelievable. And it was wide open passes. The hole open on the first run, touchdown. 2 back-to-back plays to Jaden Holland that were wide open tight end seams, touchdowns. I forget what the third one was a Rhett Glenn. Fourth one was a Rhett Glenn 79-yard touchdown. Just unbelievable. Rogan Parson and company tried to make it a 2-score game into the half because they played well going into the half, but after a 70-yard Luke Lawrence QB keeper and a Jack Dragus 30-yard field goal, the Eagles make it a 45-21 game going into the half, which basically it was ball game from there. The Luke Lawrence show was on full display as he went 19 of 24, 353, and 5 touchdowns, while also having 3 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown. His main target on the night was sophomore tight end Jaden Holland, who had 6 receptions, 148 yards, and 4 touchdowns. 3 of those coming in the first half, and 2 of them on wide open go routes, like I mentioned before. Other big players on offense were senior back Garrett Sims, who opened the scoring with a 77-yard touchdown, and a 27 wide receiver Christian Collins got his as well with 6 receptions, 128 yards, and a touchdown. On defense, multiple guys stood out, including Jackson Ladd, Bubba Barnes, who had 10 tackles, 3 TFLs, and a sack and a half. But the main guy was junior star linebacker Sam Jones, who finished with 11 tackles, 2 TFLs, a sack and a half, and a forced fumble. Now, looking towards the future, the talk for Antonian is the future of Rogan Parson, who after today, I believe, might be my favorite in the top 27 quarterback in TXPS. His pocket presses, his IQ, and combine that with a great arm makes for a bright, bright future for the gunslinger. However, with multiple seniors leaving, including Mikey Moreno, Aiden Bernal, Jude Belaires, and multiple guys on an experienced offensive line, they have to bring in weapons, or younger guys have to step up to help Parson if they ever want to have the chance to get to a higher level in Division One. You have the gunslinger. And in TXPS, that gets you way farther than most already. You just have to surround him with guys to win more games. Think about if you had a Ricky Gonzalez and a Rally Strode on this team right now, man, you're talking about a offense that we've on a level that it would be a Parish Liberty level. That's how good I believe in this team. But you need weapons around him. I know I 100%.
I'm not gonna let you speed past that. A Parish Liberty level's
I think if you had
ridiculous.
if you had Ricky Gonzalez and Rally Strode with Rogan Parson right now,
Really,
I would say it absolutely.
I know you've seen them and I haven't. I think that is insane. I think that's a
Ricky
slap in the face to
Ricky
Prestonwood.
Ricky Gonzalez is a Division 1 wide receiver. Raleigh Schroeder was one of the best in his school's history. He was cooking Parish Episcopal last year in the semifinals, and you have a true Division 1 guy at a quarterback. It's not like I'm going crazy here.
So the team that got destroyed by 40 points is two receivers away from being Parish Episcopal on offense.
Two elite receivers away, yes.
You're standing on this hard enough that I understand where you're coming
You're
from.
talking
I
about
think it's a bit of a stretch.
if you have weapons that are that level, I don't think it's crazy. To think about it, think about this offense last year, Wes.
Rogan Parsons good probably, but not so I don't know. It's everything. I understand. I'm not trying to like contort your argument and like put my own things in it. I understand where you're coming from that from offense. So you're saying the offensive line is good, the quarterback is great, running back is great, receivers are bad and can be substituted with two good receivers, and that makes the offense, you would say, elite.
I would say so. The
Yeah, and I
past
guess I am
thing,
possibly ignoring the fact that their defense is bad as well.
it was not great last night. It was four straight consecutive drives where Frisco Legacy scored. They were
Yeah,
basically like the
I,
defense did not help them out at all.
I
I
do
I
want to
just
chime in quickly there, and I watched the tweets you were taking. Were they just intentionally like, no, we're not covering anyone? Like these
I
are
don't know.
wide open, and it's
It
not like crazy stuff.
they just Frisco Legacy, I guess, just out schemed them, or their guys just couldn't keep up. It was one of the
It's
most
a tight
unreal.
end running a wheel.
Right, it was weird. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. It was wide open on the first drives, and they just didn't respond. So I don't know, man. I truly don't get it, but. I will hold that take. I think if you give Rogan Parson weapons, I think he's on the level. I want to make sure I say this
Don't.
correctly. I think he can be I think he'll be the top 27 guy in TXPS. I think he absolutely can. I think he's a Division 1 quarterback. I think he can be a power 4 level quarterback.
Hmm.
I truly believe that. So when you have a guy like that and you surround him with weapons, that leads to success, especially in an offense under Blake Fushak that has resulted in just yards, and points.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I think the Parish Liberty thing is kind of what I think I was picking an argument at that for no
If like
reason,
if
but
one if what I'm saying is like I think their offense can be to that level. If it's 1v1, I would still take Parish and Prestonwood because there would be the better
oh,
teams.
of course,
But
and we're
to
disregarding
the
defense.
when I'm talking about firepower and offense, you saw it even last year with Jace Toscano and Raleigh Strode. They put up
Yeah.
points on Parish, and that Parish
Hmm.
team won the title. So it's not like I'm going crazy here, truly.
Yeah. No, but my takeaway from this game as a whole is the South is bad.
Yeah,
Like
that was
I think we had questioned if there was more depth in the South this year, even not as much top end talent with St. Thomas. When you've got a team that went 2-4 and got the 4 seed in their district, just absolutely take a wood chipper to the undefeated district champion. The South has to be better.
yeah. That
It's
was
not good for this. It's not good for the sport when the North is so good that almost every team in the North can beat every team in the South. This is a challenge for Southern teams to figure something out because I don't like going into the season saying every team in the North can be almost every team in the South. It's genuinely pathetic.
Yeah. And that was my last point. I said overall, this game proves Wes's point that the D1 North is far better than D1 South. And I think going forward, you make a good point. And if you even look at the D1 bracket, the only D1 South team is in the semifinals is St. Thomas. And if you look, the reason that is because they played St. Mike's on round two. They're the only team that had to play the other D2 D1 South team in the second round. And I love St. Thomas. I think they're a good squad. It's Liberty next round. Like it's not gonna be pretty. So to your point, I think that we have to figure some stuff out, which I don't get it because I think St. Thomas is a great example of like last year where you get the team to do it. And I think they absolutely could have beaten Parish last year. I think they shot themselves in the foot
Yeah.
a couple times, you know? So you have to have that level of team to make it. That's 8 guys who went Division 1 or played elite college football. Like that's the level you have to have at a D1 South team. And I think Concordia can maybe get there because they're in the area. There's no other private schools in that area. I think St. Thomas will always be a threat, but St. Pius doesn't look like they'll be on the up and up. And then the San Antonio schools, you never know. Like they don't have like the D1 guys that can really get you over the hump. Central Catholic had their best team in years. Remember a couple years ago in Division 1 when you
Yeah.
had the 2 offensive linemen and Silas Gomez at quarterback, but that still wasn't enough.
Yeah, and here's my thing, and I'll kind of double down what I said because I was thinking, the word pathetic I felt like could be a little harsh, and I was like, maybe I should use some different verbiage. I'm not saying Antonian has to be as good as Liberty. I'm not saying Antonian or the top of that division has to be as good as Parish. I'm not saying the top of that division has to be as good as Preston with the top 3 teams. Just don't lose to the bottom of the division that's barely getting the playoffs. It's just it really is just baffling to me how much better the North is from the South. And yet again, Southern teams should take this as a challenge to figure something out. If you're telling me that there's no talent, the talent in Houston is in Austin is worse than it is in DFW, figure it out. And San Antonio. I forgot that's also a city down there. All that to say, before I continue to let words fall out of my mouth and get the podcast in trouble, that will conclude all of our content for this episode. Walker Lott, we feels like in one hand we started doing this yesterday, not this as a concept, the season yesterday, and on the other hand we have 2 weeks until it is over and we get to go hibernate like Phil the groundhog until football
Nice.
comes back. Just kidding, we do some things in that time, but Walker, the season is coming to a close, but the action is getting even more warm. Closing comments regarding round 2.
No, I think it was a good round, a lot of great games, and that's kind of what we expected. This round was going to be really good. Going forward, I do think this is going to be the least fun slate of the 3 so far. I think in D1, kind of the state game is set, and D2 is going to be a lot of fun. All Saints Regents, and then Second Baptist Fort Benning. Those are going to be the best games of the slate. D3, Holy Cross Covenant could be a game, probably not. Then Dallas Covenant Lubbock Christian, that's going to be interesting to see. Is it an actual game, or is Dallas Christian the Dallas Christian we think they are? And then D4, I feel like it's kind of been set. So, looking forward, some fun games or some title games that are basically one game away from already being set. So, yeah, a good week and excited for the next couple weeks.
A good week indeed. We are on the precipice of the end, but we will be here until that great ball of fire consumes the spinning rock that we live on. As always, I have been one half of your hosting crew. Walker Law is fantastically been himself. Ryan Schroeder is hopefully conscious somewhere in Oklahoma City. We will see you on Thursday in the semifinal preview. See you then.